Hey everybody, this is Andrew. I just wanted to jump in before the episode started to kind of reiterate an announcement we made on the last episode because not everybody listens to our narrative story-based episodes, so some of you probably are hearing this for the first time. Number one, I'm back. Papa Pricey in the flesh. It's a long story. You have to listen to the previous episode to know what happened. But also, as if one door is closed, another one's opened, or whatever that saying is, on the heels of me returning, also, some stuff has come up recently, and Dave has needed to step away from the show for a few months. Everything's okay. Everything's all good. But earlier this year, he had to basically take an indefinite hiatus away from the show. And that's the reason why it's taken so long for the show to come back, because we were sort of like feeling out what to do and what the situation was going to play out like. And then we had to decide like what we were going to do moving forward. And ultimately what we decided to do is this. Originally, we were going to just put the show on hold until Dave could come back. But now what we're going to do is we have 5 pre-recorded episodes of the show with Dave and myself. We're going to run those every other week. And then in between those episodes, we are going to run an episode with me and a guest host. Next week's episode is going to be an episode about John McTiernan, the director of Die Hard and Hunt for Red October and a bunch of other movies, and the story of his career, and then also how he ended up going to prison. And that episode is going to be with my friend and also writer of the show, Stephen Reyes. We sat down and talked about John McTiernan for a while, and that's going to be the episode that's coming out next week. And then after that, there's going to be another Andrew and Dave episode, and then another guest host episode. Not sure yet whether it's going to be Steven again or whether we're going to do like a rotating host thing, but we'll figure that out. But that's going to be the schedule. Every other week is Dave and myself, and then after that is me and a guest. And we're going to do that until we run out of those 5 episodes. And hopefully by that time, which is about 3 months, Dave will be back. And if he's not back for whatever reason, then we will move to a weekly format with me and a guest host until Dave is back. Hopefully that's not the case, and we'll be back in 3 months with Dave full time, but we might need to move to a guest host format for a little bit. So I just wanted to give you an update on that, and now enjoy the episode.
I'm Dave Baker.
And I'm Andrew Price.
Welcome to Deep Cuts, the podcast where we pick a topic and walk you through the ins, the outs, and the nitty-gritty so you can appear like an interesting and idiosyncratic person at your next forced social function. Today's topic is
HQ Trivia.
What was HQ Trivia? Well, it was a once popular, highly controversial game app that allowed its users to win actual cash. With a live TV game show vibe, millions of players were asked a series of tough questions to hit a low-stakes jackpot. But was the heyday of HQ Trivia actually worth anyone's time? Or were these paltry prizes a sign of the many disasters to come?
Act 1. Play hard, work harder. In 2012, app-based entrepreneurs Russ Yusupov and Colin Kroll had just hit it big. After selling their acclaimed video platform Vine just 4 months into its release, the duo reportedly raked in 2/3 of a $300 million take. And although the new owners over at Twitter eventually shut down their costly purchase, Yusupov and Kroll's hit had left them heaps of goodwill in the tech industry. Before we get to that, were you a Vine fan back in the day? Were you on the Vine?
I loved Vine. I never actually had one, but I would lurk.
My sketch group had a Vine channel, and we weren't like big viral Vine people like, some of the people that, to this day are still coasting off of their Vine fame. And there was like that house of people that lived on Hollywood and Vine in a house that were all Vine stars. And it was like, we live on Vine. But we had like a decent following, and we just made goofy little Vines, and it was pretty fun. A lot of like puns and stuff like that. But the biggest claim to fame, and I won't name names, he is actually a listener of the show, so forgive me for telling this story, but I will not name you. But one of my friends got dumped because of one of our Vines. We made a Vine that ended a relationship.
That's how you know that you've made art that will last.
Yes. My friend, his girlfriend at the time was diabetic, and, she took insulin shots like people who are diabetic usually do. And it's so stupid. It's so fucking stupid when you actually break it down of like what literally happened. Like, At this point, it's water under the bridge. I'm sure he doesn't give a fuck at all anymore. I don't think he even really cared that much at the time. I think maybe he was fine with the relationship ending. We were shooting a web series for somebody else. I was director of photography. My friend was running sound, and friend of the show and writer of, some of our episodes, Mike Bedard, he was also there. I just brought him along to like help out, just be like a runner and stuff. So we were shooting this web series for these people. And during, off time, we would just shoot vines. We were just hanging out. We were just shooting vines. We made this series of vines. The first one was my friend and Mike, and they were sitting there. My friend had an N64 controller, and I shot it to where they looked like they were playing video games, and you could see my friend holding the N64 controller, but Mike's hands were off camera. And my friend was like, shoot him, Mike, shoot him, get him, he's on the left. And then the camera pulls out, and then Mike is just holding a pumpkin, and he goes, oh, this is just a pumpkin. And then we shot a sequel to it. I forget what it was, but then the camera pulls out and he's like, oh no, this is just an ornate Buddha statue. It was just stuff that was in this house. And then the third of the trilogy, my friend is like, I'm having an attack. Mike, hand me my insulin shot. And then the camera pulls out and he's like, oh no, this is just something. I forget what it was. It was a stupid joke.
Yeah.
And we made 3 of them. And his girlfriend actually really liked our vines, and she would like comment on them all the time. And she saw this, and I guess she was just so insulted by it, and she thought that he was making fun of her, which he wasn't, because it was my idea. It had nothing to do with him. But she thought he was like mocking her, and so she broke up with him. He didn't say anything. We went out to dinner, and we were all just sitting there, and then he just kind of was like, yeah, she, insert name, broke up with me because of that. And I was like, what? And I felt bad, but he was like, no. I mean, I wouldn't want to date somebody if they just like got that insulted over a joke like that. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. Probably would have led to like other problems in the future. So it's probably for the best. And I was like, oh my God. But yeah, Vine was a vibe.
It was.
But unbeknownst to the public, one of Vine's founders began stirring up trouble behind the scenes. Originally hired by Twitter to manage the acquisition, Colin Kroll was soon fired for inappropriate behavior towards female staff members. In a release statement, Kroll later admitted,
as reported in the media, I was let go from Vine 4 years ago for our poor management. It was a painful experience, but an eye-opening one that served as a catalyst for professional development and greater awareness in the office. I now realize that there are things I said and did that made some feel unappreciated and uncomfortable. I apologize to those people.
I don't understand how people can get into these. I mean, it's like a lack of self-awareness and also just thinking that nothing you do is wrong or whatever. But as somebody who has worked in managerial positions and stuff like that, like, I just don't understand how people get into these situations.
I do. Look at the photo of this guy.
Yeah, you're right.
Because he went to the BJ Novak School of Management.
Yeah, 100%. It's just crazy. Like, I actually do get it, but from a personal standpoint, working in managerial positions, and not to say that I didn't make mistakes or whatever, but like, I was just always so hyper aware of like the relationship with employees and like making sure that I didn't cross any lines. I just don't understand how you could like...
Because you don't have a face that says, hey, who's holding?
Yeah, you're right. Immediately following the sale and subsequent firing, Kroll reteamed with Vine co-founder Russ Yusupov and decided to invest their spoils in a new endeavor. We got Russ Yusupov here. Russ Yusupov looks like his Tinder profile just simply says big dick energy.
Yeah, Rusupov looks like the type of guy who's the youngest brother in a famous family of siblings, and he's the one you're like, oh, there's another one?
Yeah, 100%.
He's giving Frankie Jonas energy.
Yeah, or like fucking Steve Hemsworth or whatever the hell that one's name is.
Not Liam and not Chris, but Nick Hemsworth? The one from Westworld.
Or, of course, Wolfgang Baker.
Yeah. Jim Belushi.
That's a different thing. That's a worse thing. Jim Belushi is like, he is a known quantity, but he's like 100 times more shitty than John Belushi was.
He has a whole $1 million career that's just, man, we wish your brother was alive.
Yep. What it really is Chris Farley's brother. I forget his name.
Oh, he has a brother? I didn't know that.
Yeah. He has a brother who he's an actor, but he's been in commercials and things like that. And the only thing he ever really did that gave him any sort of notoriety was in the early 2000s. He was in this parody boy band called In Together Now. Back whenever like boy bands were really popular and MTV and like TRL were really huge, they came out with this like parody of boy bands. And like they had music videos that played on TRL, and it was like a kayfabe thing where they pretended like it was a real band, but it was fake. And the joke of it was that it was 4 just like regular hot young guys, and then the 5th member was just this like 45-year-old fat guy.
Love it.
And it was Chris Farley's brother, Jeff Farley. I forget his name, but yeah, that he was in that, and then like he's a stand-up.
Kind of like this also reminds me of. Did you know that Charlie Sheen's brother is an actor? Martin Sheen.
I was going to say, other than
sorry.
Emilio?
No. Martin Sheen's brother is an actor, and he didn't change his last name, Joe Estevez. And he's in a bunch of, like, F-level movies, like Baby Ghost, and, like, the shit that I'm, like, obsessed with. And, yeah, he's not a very good actor, but he also, like, that never has an opportunity to shine, because they always pay him to be in movies so they can put Estevez.
It's like, oh, he's his brother? Like, does that mean something? Maybe I'll rent this and give it a shot. But anyway, Russ Yosipov looks like all of that stuff.
100%.
According to Russ Yosipov, he first conceived of an app-based game show back in 2015 at a so-called tech incubator. As the founder of multiple think tanks, Yosipov's creative endeavors were often larger than life, and this first vision for a mobile game was no exception. Originally called Astro Hour, Yosipov's big idea would have featured an actual astronaut hosting a weekly trivia show from outer space. That's so wild to hear, because the actual idea that we saw was like so simple and seemingly perfect. It's like, oh, it's like an app where you get a push notification whenever the show starts. You jump on, there's a host, he asks questions, you can answer them, and then you just keep going until hopefully you win. And you know, the less winners there are, the more money you get. That's such a simple and perfect idea. And to find out that it started out as like, it's an astronaut in space.
You know that time they sent William Shatner to space? It's that, but also Jeopardy.
We got, what was his name?
Kroll.
Colin Kroll here.
Not Nick Kroll, Colin Kroll.
Which, by the way, I've been listening back to the back catalog, and I don't know whether to feel insulted that you did our "this guy looks like" thing with Spandrew, like that was like a special thing between us, or just insanely impressed because he went with it.
Yeah. Colin Kroll looks like the type of guy who says, "What? She was 15."
Yep. That's really it. I mean, the BJ Novak School of Managerial Managers or whatever you said was already perfect.
Yeah. Colin Kroll looks like the type of guy that goes, I don't know. Can you just make it better in any sort of design review?
Yes. You're saying that from some painful personal experience.
Yeah, I'm just not feeling this. Can we just make it better?
Yeah. I hate that so much. People I work for have done that frequently, and it's always just like, they'll be like, yeah, but like this should be like good. It's like, oh, it's supposed to be good? I never fucking thought of that. Let me just go make it good now. I didn't even try to do that. I didn't know that was what you wanted.
Yeah, can we just kind of amplify it a little bit? Can we just turn it up? You know, I just feel like we can really, like...
At least that is, I mean, it's still stupid and it's a non-note, but at least that is them trying to say that it should be improved from what it is. But when they're just like, yeah, but like it should be like good or whatever. It's like, obviously I was trying to make it good. Like, you think I was trying to make it bad? You fucking asshole. And also, it is good, and you just have terrible taste. Despite many attempts to find funding for this galactic prototype, Yosipov's game show app failed to launch. But after a few false starts, Yosipov and Kroll decided to keep digging for new concepts. And after returning with a more level-headed take, the pair founded a development company called Intermedia Labs. During this time, Twitter made the controversial choice to shut down the Vine app completely. As a response to their baby getting axed by the big blue bird, Yosipov tweeted,
"Don't sell your company."
And with the help of partner Colin Kroll, the two produced their own social media app. In the style of Periscope, Intermedia Labs released a live streaming platform called Hype in 2017. Although Hype did not live up to its namesake, the folks at Intermedia Labs used their app to source data on the most popular streams. After combing through endless amateur live acts, Yosipov and Kroll were handed some curious findings. According to Hype Analytics, homemade game shows were doing major numbers. With the added ammunition of some cold hard facts, Yusupov decided to take another shot at one of his first pitches. Though this next plan was decidedly less ambitious than the spacey charms of Astro Hour, Intermedia Labs focused their efforts on a new trivia show. Under the name HQ Trivia, the pair sought funding for a more traditional live game show. Pitching an Earthbound host, a New York City studio, and an interactive livestream format, Intermedia Labs should have had investors lining up for a slice. But potentially due to Kroll's alleged behavior at Twitter, it took considerable time to find adequate capital. In fact, Kroll's original plan to secure $100 million in financing would forever remain a pipe dream. As a former engineering manager for Yahoo and chief technology officer for a travel site called Jetsetter, Kroll had achieved a great deal at a very young age. But in the tech world, those achievements often come at a high cost. According to his father, Colin Kroll was a driven individual known to work hundreds of hours a week. And when it came to conflicts with peers who did not wish to live their lives that way, Kroll could be a hard boss with little understanding for work-life balance. Regardless of Kroll's reputation, or perhaps buoyed by his charismatic think tank partner Russ Yusupov, the duo eventually raised enough capital to produce their first mobile game. Launched in summer of 2017, HQ Trivia shot out like a rocket. Although it was originally available exclusively to iOS users, about 300 players showed up for the first game. But when they opened up the gates to other phone carriers, word of mouth began to spread HQ Trivia hype all across the internet. Because when a new user signed up for a round of HQ Trivia, it was unlike any other game at the time. So let's just stop here and talk about this for a second. Did you play HQ Trivia?
No.
Did you know about HQ Trivia? What was your knowledge of HQ Trivia?
I knew it existed. I knew people who played it. I did not play it, but I was aware that it was a viral thing.
Yeah. The first time I experienced it was like the platonic ideal of the thinking of something becoming popular through word of mouth, because it was actually in the office that we both worked at the time. I think you worked there by that point. I don't remember exactly. It might have been before you started. But one day I walked into this room and there was a crowd of people gathered around one person. And I forget what happened exactly, but somebody was just there's this game where you just play this trivia game and you can win $100,000. And I looked at it and they were just playing HQ Trivia. And it was sort of pitched to me as it's really hard and frequently nobody wins because it's so hard. But if you do win, you could win $100,000 just from playing this fucking game. And then for a solid week at the office, everybody was obsessed with the game.
It was like when Pokemon Go first came out, and you would walk around LA and there would just be roving bands of people all trying to catch fucking Pikachus or whatever.
Yeah.
And that Pokemon Go thing was a weekend. The weekend that Pokemon Go came out, it was just everywhere.
Yeah, people were finding dead bodies and shit. It was so big. That happened for a solid week at the office. And like I said, it might have been before you started, because otherwise I feel like we would have saw this happen.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I don't think I played it at the time because I'm kind of impervious to peer pressure. When things like that happen, it doesn't light up that thing that seems to light up in other people where they want to do it too. It's more of just me observing this weird thing happening. So I don't think I actually ever played it, but then later on, I did start playing it. I honestly don't remember how this came about. I think maybe what it was that they announced that they were going to do a Harry Potter themed episode or game or whatever. And so I was we should try to play this and see if you can answer these questions or whatever. And so we did it. And then from that point on, my wife and I played it every day. It's pretty fun. It's just it's a live thing where you're competing against a bunch of other people and you're just answering trivia questions.
Is it time-based to the degree where you can't, because the thing I never understood about it is what stops people from just Googling the fucking question really quickly?
Yeah, so it's time-based to the point where if you don't actually know it, you probably can't answer it. Maybe somebody is a lightning fast Googler, or they have somebody set up. And I'm sure people did do this. I'm sure there were people gaming this game and they had 3 people working in tandem, and there's somebody at a computer, and there's somebody there with a pen and paper jotting things down, and they were just working together to answer questions. But for the normal person, there's no time to do that. But yeah, so basically the way the thing works is that there's a host, and we're just about to get to him, but his name is Scott Rogowski, and he kind of runs it like a game show. The whole thing is he's just kind of being a host guy and making jokes and kind of keeping, lubricating the situation and making it entertaining. And then he asks these questions, and then a little screen pops up on the phone, and then you have literally like 6 seconds or something really short to answer this question. And there's literally like 300,000 people playing.
Oh, wow.
And then people quickly get cold. After like the third question, it's down to like 100 people. Like there's a huge amount of people that get disqualified in the first 3 questions. I think they only ask 10 questions per show. And by the time you're getting down to like the third, second to last question, there's only like 5 people left. And basically how it worked was, for some of the games, the prize is like $100,000, some crazy amount of money. And it's so hard that it's kind of all or nothing, where either one person is going to win this or nobody's going to win it. And so it's like either one person just hits the jackpot, or they're like, nobody won. See you next time, guys. And then that's every once in a while. But most of them are, the prize pool was like 20 grand, and they were easy enough to where there would be like 50 winners. And whenever more than one person wins, they split the money. So frequently you would win, but you would get like 25 cents because you're getting like $10,000 split with 1,000 people or whatever.
Right.
And that's kind of how the game worked. And then like the big selling point was that every once in a while they would have these tentpole games where you could win $100,000 and likely only one person would win because the questions were so hard.
Was the functionality of that you, in the games where you're winning fucking 25 cents or whatever, does it stay in the app or does it get paid out to you immediately? Does the app keep you playing the game in order to hit some sort of threshold to get you paid out? Yeah,
it is that. I don't know what it is whenever you won that jackpot. Like I'm assuming that was probably a separate system. Like I don't think they were just like giving you $100,000 in an app as like currency that you would have to like cash out. I'm assuming in that case it would probably be a more official process where you'd have to like reach out to them and all this stuff. But for those small, low stakes ones, you got like 25 cents on the app and you could like withdraw it. But yeah, we played it every day, and it was just a thing that my wife and I did, and we won. I would say we won like 3 of them, but we only ever won like a couple bucks. Again, it was like you win and there's like 100 other people that also won. And we played that every day. And then one day, I mean, I'm getting ahead of the episode, but people know this, and this is kind of the point of the episode. We just got a push notification that was like, time for HQ. Just kidding. The game is ending forever.
Wow, really?
Yeah, there was and I got that push notification. I got the push notification that was like, it's time. Nah, just a joke. This shit's over.
Damn.
Like, that's how they announced it, in a fake out push notification.
That kind of rules, though.
Yeah.
That kind of fucking rules. Only someone with the face of a BJ Novak would think to do that.
Yes. And, and then I learned about this stuff later on. I didn't know about any of this stuff. And then maybe like a year or 2 later, all this stuff started coming out.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh shit, like connecting that with all of the events that I happened, like, oh, that's why they changed hosts. And that's why they ended in such a weirdly like hostile way that almost felt like a rogue employee or something.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. With a typical livestream template, HQ players were greeted with a countdown before each weekly game. Amid a veritable onslaught of reaction emojis and text-based user banter, the HQ Trivia logo formed dramatically to a booming beat. As the text chains intensified, HQ Trivia's host Scott Rogowski would suddenly appear on screen. We got Scott Rogowski here, the host with the hollow French toast. That was his slogan, because he's Jewish.
Scott Rogowski looks like the type of guy who works as a unit production manager on an NBC procedural. As
I think we'll kind of learn in this episode, and if we don't, then I can fill in the blanks there. That's so spot on.
Oh, really? I just made that up.
Because that's just what he would be.
Oh, yeah.
Scott Rogowski, he's like a really charismatic dude. He's maybe not my style of comedy, but like for what he is, he's a funny, snappy dude. He's an improv actor, so he's like got that Robin Williams word vomit thing going on. But if he hadn't have lucked out with getting this job, he would just have been like a PA for the rest of his life until he finally gave up on his dreams of being a star. Because he's got enough X factor that he was a really good choice to be the host of this app.
Yeah.
But not enough that he could have ever been like a real famous comedian actor guy.
Right.
And that also, that last segment just reminded me of the fact that was another thing about HQ in answer to your question about like whether you could cheat or Google it or whatever, is there was a chat, and the moment that a question would be answered, people would just start spamming the chat with the answer. But the thing is like, number one, many of them were just trying to throw people off. So you would see answers and it would not be the real answer. They're just intentionally trying to fuck you up.
Yeah.
And also, there wasn't enough time to look at the chat, get the answer, parse which thing you thought was right, and then go answer it. Like, you had such little time to the point where the chat was just annoying and you could swipe it away. And I did that every time. It's like, I don't want to fucking see this fucking chat. With his coiffed hair and piercing gaze, Rogowski then introduced the game with the high-energy caterwauls of a deranged daytime presenter.
It's time for HQ, baby. That's right, we are live from New York City, and this is HQ, a trivia game show on your phone where you answer tough questions to win real money.
I'm going to pull up a video real quick of Scott Rogowski on the show, just to give context, and so anybody and Dave can just know what this guy looks and sounds like, or not looks like, but his vibe, I guess is what I'm trying to say. This is how every show started, with this music and this little countdown here.
Motion graphics, baby.
I'm almost having like a PTSD reaction to that. Like I said, we play this game every day. So
Yeah.
I'm like, not a PTSD, but like a Pavlovian response.
As the great singer, songwriter, and computational biologist Rebecca Black once said, "It's Friday, Friday, gotta get down on Friday." If she were writing the song today, I think she would amend the lyrics to, "Gotta get down with HQ on Friday," because yeah, that's what you do. When you're playing HQ, you get down with it, you win some money. Hi everybody, I am live from New York City, and this is HQ, a trivia game show on your phone where you answer tough questions to win real money. It is Friday. Thank Jeebus. October 20th, and I'm your host, Scott Rogowski. There are over 7,000 players in today's game.
So that's the vibe of the show.
It's funny what you say, too, of like, he's like got the skill up to a certain point, but then it's just kind of, it never like reaches liftoff. It's always, and I'm Rogowski, and this is the thing that we're doing, and there's always just a little bit too much of a hitch, and it's almost like AI generated a voice that has not a long enough clip.
For like a trivia app, he's like very overqualified. He's like way too talented of a performer to be on this. So when you watch it, it gives you this illusion of like, man, like the production quality on this is amazing. They have this like amazing host. Like this guy could be a movie star. But in reality, he can't quite pull it together to play in the big leagues. Also, I just have to play this because this popped up when I searched this and it reminded me. And once again, I was here for this. I was here for all of this. This isn't an anthropological look back on something. I was here for this whole experience. I was playing the game.
So ridiculous. It's like you're talking about this like it's like World War II. Like you don't know what I experienced on the beaches of Normandy.
But at one point, this app got so huge that I'm assuming, as we'll get into, they got a bunch of funding. And there was a bunch of different stuff that was happening around the app. And then they started doing these big, like Hollywood deals where one time Scott Rogowski went on to, I think it was The Voice, and he like did a segment on The Voice talking about HQ trivia. And then there was a bunch of tie-in episodes of HQ with movies where they would get big movie stars to go onto the show and guest host with him. And one time they got The Rock to be on it. And I remember when it happened and I watched The Rock one. My assumption is that somebody somewhere, Rock's agent or whatever, Dwayne Johnson's agent, is just like, hey, you're going to do this thing. And he's like, what is it? And he's like, it's like an app. It's like a game show app. You're just going to go and you have to do this game show. And he's like, what is this? I don't want to do this. And he's just like, well, you're going to get paid $3 million. And he's like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll do it. So you can tell that like The Rock just does not give a fuck about this at all. He showed up at a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah.
And they're like, walk in that room and just like talk to these people for a second. And there's a genuinely awkward moment where Scott Rogowski like puts his hand on his shoulder and he's like, don't touch me. It really happens. And it's not a joke.
Fuck yeah.
With a series of strange but somehow charming non sequiturs and chintzy showbiz speak, Rogowski was originally the true face of HQ Trivia. For some users, the uncanny valley nature of the game and its host was entertainment enough. But with the boasts of real cash prizes, most players simply came to win. Further explaining the rules, Rogowski would announce,
here's how the game works. I'm going to ask 12 questions ranging from easy to hard. You have 10 seconds from when I start reading the question to tap your answer. When you get it right, you move on to the next round. make it to the end, and you and the winners split the cash.
And here's where things get tricky with HQ Trivia. Although early jackpots were often in the $200 or $300 range, these prizes would eventually hit the thousands on occasion. And in the wake of its launch, that seemed pretty sweet, because when HQ Trivia was exclusive to iOS users, that meant a jackpot of 250 might only have to be split between a handful of winners. And with some seriously tough questions, the road to a win could be pretty difficult. By the way, one of the episodes we won was the Back to the Future themed one. It was like the easiest trivia I've ever done. The hardest question that was supposed to be like the stumper, I was just like, oh, it's just this.
Do you remember what it was?
No, I don't. It might have been something about like what the mall was called after Marty goes back in time, because the mall changes from the Twin Pines Mall to the Lone Pines Mall because he hits one of the pine trees at the beginning of the movie. It might have been that one. But whatever it was, I was just like, oh, it's just this. This is nothing. The first few rounds of an HQ Trivia game often involved relatively simple multiple choice answers. For example, a first round player might encounter a question like, where is the Lincoln Memorial located? Or, Seattle was the birthplace of which music genre? Select the correct answers of Washington, D.C. or grunge, and users would be shown how many of their peers also answered the question correctly. But as the competition ramped up, so too did the challenging questions. While the everyday trivia fan might be able to tell you what a triple-double refers to in the NBA, it was suspiciously hard to tackle a fifth-round stunner like who authored the Bass Lag series of weird fiction novels. But the unbalanced nature of the HQ Trivia format did not deter new players from downloading the service. And before long, HQ Trivia was a major player in the mobile game industry. They also had like little things that were just like sort of inside jokes or whatever within like frequent players. I can't even remember what it was called, but if there was a question, and this was just lended to like the playability of it and like making it a fun thing outside of just I'm trying to win a trivia game so I can get money. But they had things like if there was a question where like most people answered it wrong, so it was like only like 5% of people got it right and 95% of people got this one wrong, it would have like a special name, like that question, and it would come up with like a little sign that labeled it as this or whatever. And if it was the opposite, where it was like, 99% of people got it right, then it would have its own name. So it was like, it just had a whole little vibe to it.
A whole weird little insider culture.
Yeah.
My question is, as a non-sports person, do you know what a triple-double is?
I don't even know what sport that's for.
It says right here, the NBA.
Oh, yeah, basketball. So a triple-double is like when you shoot 2 3-pointers in a row.
Oh, that's I can see that, yeah.
Or the other way around, 3 2-pointers in a row. Is there even a 2-pointer? I don't even know if that's
yes, there is. A standard basket is 2 points,
okay.
And then beyond the arc that runs around the circumference of the court is a 3-pointer. But no, a triple-double is when your statistics are 10 or more in the 3 main categories, field goals, rebounds, and assists.
No idea. Would never know that in a million years.
That's okay. That's why we balance each other out.
Your role is just knowing basketball rules?
Yeah, man. Did you know that basketball was invented by Mormons?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Frankly, I'm a big basketball fan, and I didn't know that. But I just read Dragon Hoops by Jean Luen Yang. It's a YA coming-of-age graphic novel about a team of high schooler basketball players who are attempting to win the state championship. And he, the author of the book, is like following his team, the team that he teaches at their high school around. And it's kind of these little vignettes talking about the various kids who are on the team, the coach who's on the team, and also throughout the background of that, background of the history of basketball and how it got started and how it has evolved. And it originally started at the YMCA because a Mormon guy duct taped a fucking like apple basket to like the rafters of a gymnasium during the winter one year and was like, all right, guys, we're going to throw this ball into that basket.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Did you know that the reason why Mormons don't drink coffee is because
racism?
Yes. And also when they would have the meetings on the compound of the Mormon congregation founded by Joseph Smith, they would have like the meetings of all the elders in his house, and they would just, talk about stuff, and they would drink coffee. And his wife, Joseph Smith's wife, got tired of having to clean up the coffee rings on her table. And so one day Joseph Smith was like, I just came out of a meeting with God, and he said, we can't drink coffee anymore.
I actually did know that, but I had forgotten it until you told me, because I think actually maybe you've told me this before. I bet you there's another episode where you're like, did you know? And I'm like, what? But since you died, I've just blocked all that out.
Yeah.
So this is like the first time I'm hearing it.
If I ever repeat myself, it's because you've blocked out all of that stuff and I'm just trying to reintroduce you to information. It's not for any other reason.
Yeah. Speaking of other reasons of why we talk, do you have anything you'd like to promote?
If you want to get my book, which still, I was gone for 2 years. I was dead for 2 years. But I still got to sell off some of these books. I came back to life and I was like, man, there's still a box of these left? Come on. Even when I'm dead, nobody flocked to this and bought it in tribute. But I still got them. So if you want to pick up a copy of my book, Deadbolt AI Private Eye, you can go to my website, dapricerights.com, pick up a copy of the book. It's about a futuristic robot living in a society where robots with artificial intelligence are granted human rights and kind of coexist with humans. And there's a bunch of problems and little things that occur because of that. And it's him just navigating that while also kind of going through a traditional hard-boiled 1940s style mystery. Dave, you got anything you want to talk about?
Yeah. If you have not read my book, Mary Tyler Moorhawk, which is an action-adventure surrealistic literary graphic novel. It's half novel, half comic book. That's a cool thing to do. Mary Tyler Moorhawk. You can find it wherever books are sold. It's about a journalist 100 years in the future who's obsessed with a TV show that lasted 9 episodes called Mary Tyler Moorhawk. His life gets turned upside down when he finds out that the guy who created his TV show that he's obsessed with is named Dave Baker, which is his exact name. And it sends him off on this strange existential journey, examining the act of creativity and how sometimes that can be a prison. Spandrew, where can you find stuff about our show on the internet, though?
Well...
Oh, shit. I mean, Andrew. Fuck, I'm so sorry.
God damn it.
I'm so sorry.
You're making this... remember the season 5 arc of Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
That's the one with her sister?
Buffy dies. She
Yeah.
sacrifices herself and dies, but then they bring her back. And then there's that whole, maybe 6-episode arc in the beginning of, I think it's season 5, maybe it's more like season 4, where it's revealed that she's, depressed because she accepted her death and she was actually in, they thought that they saved her from hell, but she was actually in heaven.
Yeah. And
so she's actually grieving having to be taken out of heaven and be back in the real world. So to her friends, it's amazing that she's back and it's like they saved her, but to her, it's a tragedy and she has to learn to cope with the fact that she's alive again and she's not in heaven. You're not making that process any easier for me when you call me Spandrew.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Or rather, should I say, I'm sparry.
God damn it. I hate you so much. But if you want to follow us on social media, you can go to Facebook and search Deep Cuts Podcast. We've got a page there. You could also join our Facebook group where we have some people in there talking about the show, making memes, doing other cool stuff, having a little community. You can join our Discord server, bit.ly.com/deepcutsdiscord, where we talk about the show, we make memes, we play games, we do other cool things. Sometimes there's some interactive stuff in the show where if you're in the Discord, you can be a part of that, whether it's, reading stories on the show. Like one time we did the SCP episode,
There was an SCP episode that I was the host of.
Yes. And there was listener-written SCP episodes which were submitted by Discord users. And you guys read those on the show, or we read those on the show, or something.
I read them with a co-host on the show.
Yes, exactly. There's fun stuff like that. So you can join that server. You can follow us on Instagram at DeepCutsPod. You can follow us on TikTok at Mystery Treehouse. And I've gone ahead and decided to take up Spandrew's mantle, and I'm now running his TikTok page. So if you want to follow me, at Dead Boy Detective. And now back to the show. Act 2, Tech It to the Limit. In late 2017, just as HQ Trivia was gaining momentum, Time Magazine called it the App of the Year. And by any measure of success, it was hard to disagree with this assessment. With an average player count of 1 to 200,000, Colin Kroll and Russ Yusupov had captured lightning in a mobile game. And by March of the following year, less than 12 months since its launch, HQ Trivia hit its highest player count with a staggering 2.38 million users. And like, it's fucking crazy to be in a live stream with a million other people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, outside of like a live stream of a presidential debate or whatever, to just be on like a regular live stream and there's a million other people also there watching with you is like pretty surreal. And regularly you join them and there'd be like a million concurrents. I'd never seen anything like that before. Like when I used to work at Super Deluxe and we did live streams, like that was the craziest live stream concurrent number I'd ever seen before that. Like our best streams, we had like 20,000 concurrents, which I was like, that's a fucking lot of people. But a million people would be in any given HQ Trivia stream for a while. Despite the rosy glow of adulation and a near constant stream of new users, things were getting rocky over at Intermedia Labs. In the wake of launching a mobile offshoot called HQ Words, Colin Kroll was said to have played a major role in dismissing his longtime friend and partner Russ Yesipov from his position as CEO. This decision came after many claims decrying the management style of Yesipov. Labeled as a difficult and tyrannical leader, employees briefly celebrated his dismissal. But after the board of investors declared Colin Kroll as the new CEO, a mutinous complaint was filed with the Intermedia Labs HR department. In the report, employees accused Kroll of acting inappropriately and routinely showing up late. But even though this was a clear indication of Kroll's ongoing history as an unprofessional manager, the board of investors went ahead with their decision and named him chief of the company. This sudden upheaval could not have come at a worse time for the fledgling company, because despite raising $15 million in investment capital, a far cry from Kroll's $100 million plan, HQ Trivia was in a sorry state. So basically what happened at this point was Russ Yesipov was the CEO of the company, but based on what I read, people kind of liked him. Like, they enjoyed him as the CEO, but there was like maybe a vocal minority of people that thought he was too strict or something like that. And then ultimately, I think that Colin Kroll kind of like used that as an excuse to be like, oh, I need to step in and replace you because some people have complained that you're like too strict and you're kind of like a tyrannical leader. And I think basically what it was like people didn't actually really feel like that. And they was just kind of an excuse because he created Vine and that did well with Russ. And then they started another app and it kind of flopped. And then they started another app. And I think maybe at the time when he had no expectations of it, it was like, sure, Russ, you be the CEO. But then when the thing started getting actually popular, he was like, wait a minute. I want to be the leader of this thing. So he kind of did this weird backstabby thing to his friend where he was like, people are complaining about you, so I need to replace you, even though that actually wasn't the case and people actually kind of liked the other guy. So he kind of staged a hostile takeover, replaced him as CEO, got the board to approve this, even though, if anything, he was the one that people would complain about because he had these like sexual harassment things kind of hovering in his background. And as it turned out, the employees of HQ Trivia did not like this idea, and they didn't want Colin Kroll to be the CEO because they didn't like him, and there were incidents of him saying inappropriate things to people. And so essentially what happened was a bunch of the HQ employees got together and they wrote a collective letter to the board saying that they were protesting Russ Yesipov's replacement as CEO, and a bunch of members of HQ signed it. And if I remember correctly, Scott Rogowski was actually one of the people who also signed this joint letter. And they turned it in, and they basically were requesting that Russ be reinstated as the CEO. And essentially what happened was Colin... What the fuck are their names? Colin Kroll.
You know the sci-fi fantasy movie Krull?
Yes.
It's like that, but with an O. Yeah. Kroll.
Yes. He basically just fired all those people. Everybody who signed the letter. And I think except for Scott Rogowski, because he's,
the guy.
He's the face of the thing. They can't just, it's not an easy decision to fire him.
Yeah.
But everybody else, they just cleaned house. They were just like, oh, you don't like this change? Well, fuck you. And so they fired like a huge chunk of the team, and then they replaced them with new people. But then Scott Rogowski was still around, but he was on uneven footing because he had signed this thing, and he had a embattled relationship with the company from that point on. And then ultimately we'll kind of see where that goes. But the company at almost the apex of their popularity already just kind of almost imploded, essentially, because they made this decision to change CEOs and nobody at the company liked it. And they staged a mutiny of sorts, and they all got fired. Like any popular mobile app, HQ Trivia was known to have the occasional lag or stutter in gameplay, but where some games might crash and force you to start from the beginning, a faulty start on HQ Trivia meant a full lockout from that week's game. In a couple of instances, the entire game had to be postponed due to full-blown server blackouts. And with money or various retail prizes on the line, many users felt stung by HQ Trivia's poor performance. And about those prizes, users who were able to get through every round of HQ Trivia were of course obligated to split the jackpot with concurrent winners. As the player count grew, so too did the amount of winners of each game. But most of the time, the prize pool stayed the same, which meant that a final take from a $600 jackpot might look something like $4.50. And as I was saying before, at a certain point around the time when I was playing it, you'd have prize pools that were actually like 10 grand. But then 1,000 people would win and you would just still win essentially nothing. And they were kind of designed to be that way. For 80 to 90% of the games, they didn't actually want anybody to win real money. And then they would do these big stunt ones every once in a while where it was all or nothing.
Was there a reason for why chronologically they would do those big ones? Was it like holidays or like every third Thursday? Or is it just random?
At first it was random. At first it was like randomly a game would be much higher stakes, and I'm assuming it was based on funding. It was like they would get,
we got a brand deal or whatever,
and then eventually they started becoming like actual integrated brand games with movies. So like they would do an episode of HQ Trivia that was sponsored by The Rock's movie, and then he was co-host of the episode, and then the prize was like some insanely high amount of money, and it was like sponsored by the movie
Scorpion King.
Yeah, Scorpion King. HQ Trivia was around whenever the Scorpion King came out.
Well, technically that is true, but it would probably be Scorpion King like 4.
Yeah.
The Randy Couture one.
Yes, but The Rock still...
Yeah, still there.
Was the host.
Yeah. Finally, The Rock has come to HQ Trivia.
This deal took so long to do that I'm no longer in this franchise.
I feel like that's a good episode. I feel like we should do a Scorpion King trajectory. Mummy 2, Scorpion King 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think we should watch all those and track the inevitable decline of Scorpion King.
Yes. To add insult to injury, HQ Trivia prize minimums required at least $20 to cash out your prize. With average takes of less than $1 per game, most HQ Trivia gamers came up short. And if a player failed to reach that $20 threshold within 90 days, well, consider it a forfeit to Big HQ. That's right, even if you win this trivia, you probably still lose. And yeah, I never actually got any money. I think we won 3 times, and we never actually got any money. It was really just bragging rights. It was just like, oh yeah, this game is notoriously hard, and we actually won.
Right.
Which isn't to say there weren't some winners who were owed substantial cash outs, but even in those rare cases, some users reported never receiving their money at all. In fact, one notable player named Alex Jacob won $20,000 in prize money, but stated that his PayPal deposit never came. After 2 months of radio silence, Jacob eventually received his cash out, but reported it had been delayed due to bot checking from HQ servers. Although this was a happy story for the gamer, many others were not as lucky. Hampered by so-called defrauding checks, many Android and iOS players were unable to verify their non-bot status. With unclickable payout buttons under the guise of protection from potential cheaters, HQ Trivia quickly garnered a reputation as a broken app. But in December of 2018, just over a year since the successful launch of this game, troubled HQ Trivia co-founder Colin Kroll was found dead at 34 years old. After police were alerted to his Soho apartment by an associate, officers discovered his body face down on the bed. According to reports, Kroll's apartment had all the signs of overworking and drug abuse. Scattered around his various paperwork and workstations, paraphernalia and substances painted a grim picture. Dubbed an accidental overdose by the medical examiner, Kroll's body was said to contain a deadly combination of fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. Although Kroll's father claimed his lost son did not have a history of drug abuse, he believed life in the big city as a major player in tech had simply caught up with him. But in the wake of this untimely demise, many were quick to note some garish jokes and foreboding proclamations from HQ Trivia shows.
Welcome to your new addiction. It's a lot healthier than heroin. Trick question, TMZ is the answer. Maybe TMZ will be covering me one day in HQ. 4,800 and...
Seems like kind of a stretch. Whether or not the morbid attitude of the game show spoke to a greater culture in HQ Trivia or not, it seemed clear to many that there was a darker side to the company. And for police, that meant looking into the final correspondences of Colin Kroll. After searching through his messages, investigators were unable to find any correlation between HQ Trivia practices and the unfortunate death. But police were immediately suspicious of several text chains found on Kroll's phone. Prior to his death, the tech entrepreneur had sent several single-word messages like shirt and book to an unknown number. After months of investigation, officials uncovered a citywide drug ring used by wealthy executives to order narcotics. Operating like a food delivery service, this well-orchestrated group of dealers provided DoorDash drugs to their customers. After Colin Kroll's overdose, police were able to extinguish the organization over a series of busts and trials. During this time of mourning, HQ Trivia began to suffer even more blows to their once valued brand. With ongoing performance issues, false hope prizes, and a startling drop in players, it seemed as if things were coming to an end. For many users, the antics of host Scott Rogowski were a major highlight of HQ culture, but as the company began to roll out more and more offshoot titles like HQ Jokes and HQ Drops, Rogowski used his growing popularity to achieve his dreams. After signing on to host the DAZN Network's baseball show Changeup, Colin Kroll and his investors opted to replace the fan favorite rather than meet his contractual demands, eventually hiring comedian Matt Richards as Rogowski's successor. HQ Trivia seemed to have lost much of its luster, and its fan base. As user accounts began to lag harder than the game itself, HQ decided to add a rotating cast of hosts to breathe new life into the format. And I was around for that as well. I mean, obviously I didn't know like behind the scenes of it, but eventually they replaced Scott Rogowski with a new host, Matt Richards. And, he was fine. Once again, I didn't actually think that Scott Rogowski was funny. Like, he was just like, oh yeah, this is like a charismatic host guy.
Yeah, he's there.
But his jokes were all just like a lot of like puns, and I'm not like really that into that kind of stuff.
I know, it's the only thing that really truly separates us.
Yeah.
It's the gulf in between us.
Yeah. And then Matt Richards, I thought he was also fine. I didn't think he was like a dramatic drop in quality from Scott Rogowski, but a lot of people in the comments did. And part of it was probably because he was black. There's always that like racism somewhere in there.
It's usually not somewhere. It's usually pretty close to the top.
A black guy either embodies a role that people just like thought of as white, or whenever a black guy replaces a white person. So there was some hatred towards him. I thought he was comparable. He was just like another kind of funny host guy.
Yeah.
That had a comedy background.
Also, it's a fucking trivia app.
People were like really passionate about it.
Oh, I know. I'm saying that it's funny how those fandoms just spiral out of control. And it's like, come on, guys. At the end of the day, it's like, who wants to be a millionaire, but on your cell phone?
Yeah. Unfortunately, these attempts at rebranding proved fruitless. And despite Yusupov's various methods to try and sell the company, investors caught wind of the potential sales and pulled their funding. And also, whenever Colin Kroll died, Rust Yusupov stepped back in as the CEO. And that's sort of like where I came into this story and learned about all this stuff. I saw a random news article that was like,
Yusupov's back, baby.
Yeah, ousted HQ Trivia CEO steps back in after the tragic death of his partner or whatever.
Yeah. With
several starts and stops in service throughout 2020 and into 2022, HQ Trivia went dark after only 5 years of operation. Eventually, independent programmers and hackers began to jailbreak the Forsaken app and have reintroduced it several times through uncouth means. But these instances have always been brief and are usually met with immediate cancellation. And yeah, that was essentially what happened. Like I said, one day we got a push notification and it was just like, time to go live. Just kidding. HQ Trivia is dead forever. It felt like you were like there for something.
Yeah.
You don't usually see that kind of thing in the corporate world of apps or whatever. Like, things are usually like very controlled from a PR perspective, and you would only ever hear like the most like, astroturfed PR version of the story of like, HQ Trivia has made the mutual and difficult decision to end operations after 3 glorious years. But there was just a push notification that was like, we're dead. This app is fucking over. Fuck all of you. And it was like, oh, wow, we're never going to do this again.
The other thing, too, that's kind of interesting to me is the type of personality that it takes to get a third of $300 million. So probably around $100 million. And who knows what that was behind the scenes, right? Maybe they both traveled for a while and then they were like, all right, I'm bored. I kind of want to do my next project. The timeline would appear to be, we sell Vine, we make $50 to $100 million each, and then immediately just go on to new projects to make more money. If I made $50 million, I think I'd be sitting on a fucking beach. Well, that's not true. I'd be going to Transylvania to see fucking Vlad the Impaler's castle or whatever. No, you know what I mean? Like, I would be like, all right, now I'm going to just fuck off for a while.
But, that's the thing is like...
That's that grind set.
Well, it's the grind set, but also, the grind set is like the dark, ugly face of that thing that we're talking about in other episodes.
Yeah.
The pure ambition.
Yeah.
Where, for some people, the ambition, the thing that compels you that you have to keep pushing forward is like creating something. You have to make a movie like our boy
Cliff Twemlow.
Or, you have to make that comic. For some people, it's just having power.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree, also money. But honestly, I think it's just more the power. Money comes along with that. But it's just like that drive to be seen as like a powerful person and to have, that status and to feel like you are lording over people and that you have all this control and like I'm a CEO and I have this company and these are all my employees and this is my assistant. They have that blind ambition, but it's removed from like the pure inner core of like creating something new, and it's placed in this other darker area, which is like obtaining power and being rich and successful, and the sort of like surface level ideas of the results of making something. And once you get that power, it's still not enough. And then you start fucking doing heroin.
Yeah.
And then you're like on benders in your penthouse, snorting cocaine and shooting up fentanyl because that power just still isn't enough. And then, like you said, if you got $50 million, you'd be, on a fucking trek across the world fulfilling all of your childhood dreams. But for them, it's just like, this is just coal for the fire of this power. We need more now, more power, more power. And it just never ends. Because to a certain degree, it never ends for a creative person either. Like, even when you make that thing and you've gotten, validation, you still need to make something else. And that can be unhealthy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You can kill yourself doing that. But as long as you're responsible and you're making good decisions, it's a healthy obsession of wanting to create things and bring things into the world. And it's rooted in a place in your soul that I think can be satiated to a degree. Like I said, there's still a part of that where you can get lost in that obsession and it's never good enough and you can go off the deep end. But if you are responsible and making good choices, that part of your soul can be healed.
Yeah.
But the part of your soul that needs power and money, it's an empty, endless chasm that can never be filled.
I mean, and that guy's face says all that. Like, literally before I knew any of this stuff, I was just like, that's a face that says you holding. It's fucking kind of sad.
It's sad, and it's like, you said this on another episode with Spandrew, but you talked about how like the desire to create the next American novel was replaced by the desire to create the next American film, and now it's been supplanted by like creating the next American company.
Yeah.
And now like, whereas people used to want to be novelists and directors, now they want to be CEOs. And it's like, it's a fundamental misplacement of where your goals should be, right? And I'm not saying like being a CEO is like a bad like job that somebody might want to have. Like maybe somebody is just like a person who's interested in business and they want to be a CEO. But like being a CEO for the sake of being a CEO and like the idea of power and fame that comes along with that, like that you get to be the next Jeff Bezos or whatever. I feel like that's fundamentally the wrong priorities to place your soul, I guess, in, rather than like, I want to be a CEO because I want to build this cool thing that everybody will love and it'll, revolutionize this thing and it'll change the world. Like, people don't actually care about that anymore.
They just care about being perceived as being that. Yeah.
And that's why you have so many companies that just like create products where you're just like, what is this? Who wanted this? Because they're not starting companies because they had an amazing idea. They're starting companies because they want to be a CEO.
Yeah.
It's like a simulacrum of a soul healing experience that can actually heal your soul.
Yeah, I mean, there's an existential bleakness to that in some ways feels like something to rail against, and in other ways feels just like the status quo of life now. Like, there just is a fundamental shift, and there's nothing to do except quietly resist in your own way by sitting and making things by yourself in the corner, because the idea that we're ever going to go back to the great American novel as the ultimate aspirational endeavor in American life just doesn't seem real.
Yeah, at a certain point you hit the wall where you realize that you are sort of powerless to change the world in any kind of meaningful way yourself. And so you just kind of have to retreat into your own sort of like insular, compartmentalized world where at least like in this world, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to make this cool thing. And, there'll be potentially a good amount of people who will be really passionate about this thing and really love it. And that's just gotta be good enough for me.
Yeah.
Rather than like, thinking that I could ever be Ernest Hemingway or something.
Well, on that note, I'm Dave Baker.
And I'm Andrew Price.
Still not used to hearing anyone say it.
Still not used to being alive.
If you'd like to find me on the internet, you can do so at heydavebaker.com, or you can find my book, Mary Tyler Moorhawk, which is my personal, quiet, shrill scream into the void of maybe this will matter. You can do so wherever books are found. Andrew, where can people find you on the internet?
If you want to pick up my book, which, to be honest, is not my quiet, shrill scream into the void. It's just kind of like a cool little thing that I made. I think my quiet, shrill scream into the void is yet to see the light of day, but one day you will all see it, and you will all regret ever doubting me. I just decided to turn it into like a supervillain speech at the end. It's a little book I made with an artist named Guillermo Villarreal, and it's called Deadbolt AI Private Eye. It's a book about a robot detective fighting crime in the future. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow us on Facebook by searching Deep Cuts Podcast. You can join our Facebook group by searching the Deep Cuts Podcast Facebook group. We have a cool little community there that talks about the show and makes memes about the show and other fun stuff. You can join our Discord server, which is another community where they do all that stuff, and they also play games and other things, by going to bit.ly.com/DeepCutsDiscord. You can follow us on Instagram at DeepCutsPod. You can follow us on TikTok at Mystery Treehouse. And you can follow me on TikTok at Deadboy Detective. Deep Cuts is a production by Boy Genius Media. If you'd like to find this show and others like it, please visit boygeniusmedia.com or deepcutspod.com.
If you want to join in on post-episode discussions, please join the Deep Cuts Podcast Facebook group. Finally, subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional video content.
The incidental music for this episode was created by D. Catalano, whose music can be found at wekeepoddhours.bandcamp.com. This episode of Deep Cuts was written by Matthew Mitchell. The episode was edited by Louis Poggie. If you'd be interested in writing for Deep Cuts, email andrew@boygeniusmedia.com.